and welcome to Spotlight on Jackson County. We here at WKFK and Jackson County are indeed privileged and honored today to have in our studio our congressman from the 4th District in Mississippi, Congressman Stephen Palazzo. We want to thank you for taking the time out of a very busy schedule to come in here and to tell the citizens of Jackson County and the coast what's going on up there in Washington, what you're doing to help us.
Well, Doug, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be in South Mississippi, especially in Pascagoula over here in Jackson County. Thank you for having me on your show. But it's been 13 months since I've been serving as South Mississippi's newest U.S. congressman, and I tell you, it's been a busy 13 months. The other day, someone said, you know, when are you going to get something done up there? You know, what about all this gridlock? And it's like, of course, the person wasn't from South Mississippi, and I said, well, gridlock. If you're saying I'm engaging in gridlock, then I think I'm doing my job, because South Mississippi sent me up there last year to block the destructive policies of this administration and his friends and the liberals within the regulatory agencies, and we've been doing just that. So I think we've been extremely successful in fulfilling our promises to the American people, that we're no more health care bill, no more Dodd-Franks, no more trampling of the Constitution that we saw from 2009 and 2010. Although we haven't been able to repair all the damage, the 2012 election may help with that. It's extremely important that, you know, not only do we hold the House with conservatives, but we elect a conservative majority in the Senate, and of course, we would like to have a Republican president. And you know, we were talking about this before the show. March 13th is the Republican primary. First time in a long time, Mississippi's, we're going to have the presidential candidates on the ballot. We're relevant. Usually it's already predetermined or decided by this time, but Mississippians are going to have the opportunity to go select who they want to be as their Republican candidate for president, and also at the same time they're going to have an opportunity to vote for their U.S. congressman. So again, that's March 13th, and I'm excited. You know, a lot of people say from time to time, who are you supporting? I have to say I'm learning something about the candidates every day, and I'm going to keep looking at them, and I can tell you whoever wins the primary is going to get my full support, because I think this is a historic election coming up, and that you know, whoever the nominee is, even if he's not your first or second choice, we need to get behind him and push him, because anybody's better than the current president that we have, especially in light of a lot of the things that we've seen recently, the attack on religious freedom in America. I know here in Mississippi we understand the significance of this, but I hope everybody around this country understands that, you know, this is an attack on the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. We have men and women dying overseas because they swore an oath to this very Constitution. And we have the Commander-in-Chief, the President, through his own actions, trampling on our constitutional rights to religious liberty. Where is it going to stop? It has to stop this year. We need to put a leader in the office, someone that's going to hopefully respect the God-centered, limited constitutional government and some of the values our founding fathers. I mean, today is George Washington's birthday. Perfect example is he credited his political prosperity to religion and morality, and for us to be fighting over our religious liberty today, I don't think our founding fathers would have ever expected that to happen. But I'm sorry to digress a little bit. It's been a very busy 12 months. You know, I'm serving on the House Armed Services Committee, Sea Power and Projection, which handles the Navy and Marine Corps budget, shipbuilding. You know, we've got some of the finest shipbuilders in the world. We build the greatest ships the world has ever seen right here in Pascagoula, Mississippi. I'm chairman of the Space and Aeronautics Committee that oversees NASA, with Stennis Space Center being in our backyard, and knowing that the path back to space is going to go through South Mississippi. I'm doing everything that I can to work with this administration, with NASA, to make sure we don't give up our legacy of space leadership and turn it over to the Chinese or the Russians. And so we've got a lot of things going on right now, and I tell you, this past year we've sent 27 bills over. You know, everywhere I go, people overwhelmingly say, "Look, appreciate what you're doing. You're doing a good job. Let's get the spending under control. Let's keep trying to create American jobs in Mississippi." And they know, people down here know that we're working hard for them. We've passed over 27 bills in the House of Representatives and have sent them over to the Senate, where they have not seen the light of day. Harry Reid refuses to take up bills that would spur our economy, that would create American jobs, that would reduce our dependence on foreign oil. They're all sitting there. And so what are we going to do this year? We're going to do the same thing we did last year. We're going to keep any more destructive policies coming out of this administration that are going to harm America's economy, that are going to harm our job creators and our small businesses. And we're going to continue working on the path to prosperity, which is the Republican budget, which will actually address the spending addiction that we have in Washington. It will balance the budget in time, but it will foster a healthy business climate so we can create jobs, and hopefully we're going to see many of those jobs here in Mississippi, South Mississippi.
Well, you know, there was something else we were talking about there before the show started, and that was the Restore Act that just happened. That's going to be significant for the coast too.
Yeah, how can I forget that? That was one of our major things that I've been focusing on this past year, and of course with all the other crises that happen to pop up in the federal government from time to time. And for people that aren't familiar, the Restore Act will redirect 80% of the Oil Pollution Act penalties and fines. Instead of going into the trust fund controlled by the federal government, Secretary Mavis and others in their reports feel like 80% of that money, that penalty money, should come back to the Gulf states, to the local areas, and let them determine how to spend it so we can begin our long-term economic and environmental recovery. And the great thing is there's no taxpayer funds involved. These are penalties because of the oil spill. BP will be paying the fines, not taxpayers. And also, there's no reason why the federal government should profit off of our pain and suffering. We carry the burden of oil and gas production for America right here in our backyard. We produce over 30 to 40% of the nation's supply of seafood. We know it's some of the best in the world.
Yes, indeed.
So it's time that we take care of our Gulf of Mexico, because she's been really good to us.
Well, it sounds like we need to keep Stephen Palazzo in Congress to help keep this going for us.
Well, thank you, Doug.
So if that sounds like
I hope others agree with
folks,
you.
it is. I'm not going to try to hide it. It is. Congressman, I've had some people email me a lot of questions, and one of the things the first one that went actually to the front of the list was the price of gas. They are just, I mean, I can't tell you how many emails. It was over 100 about the price of gas. No pun intended, but the Middle East has got us over a barrel. I mean, every time they hiccup over there, the price of oil goes up for us. And when that happens, everything we touch in this nation, everything we touch, groceries, clothing, we were talking about this before the show, goes up. And the administration is absolutely refusing to build the XL pipeline, which is amazing to me. But the Republicans, you included, have tried to push something through to make this happen. And it's getting blocked, isn't it?
It is, and Doug, the thing that we could make this an hour session. America does not have an American energy policy.
Nope.
It's whatever president's sitting in the Oval Office basically determines whether we're going to produce our own oil, our own gas, or we're going to pursue taxpayer subsidized Solyndra type energy, which is totally has not worked for us, but it's taken a lot of our hard-earned tax dollars and hasn't produced the alternative energy that we've been sold. But you mentioned Keystone. The president said, haven't had time to study it. It's the Republicans' fault. We wouldn't even be talking about Keystone XL if it wasn't for the Republicans. We're trying to get them to approve it. And they said, well, they haven't had time. They've had 3 years to study this. So either this government is completely incompetent, or they have an ulterior motive why they don't want to pass this. And they complain about, well, they're going to run a pipeline across America. We got pipelines in our backyard. I mean, look, you go down the road and look at the easements. I mean, it's like a spider web across America. But instead, but this administration, if this president wanted this to happen, if he wanted these 22,000 American jobs, if he wanted to drive down the cost of energy and to make it more available and affordable, of course our economic and national security depends on it, he can make this happen. Instead, he's driving Canada to start discussions with China to look about pushing this pipeline through Alberta. And we don't need that. We don't need that. But we need to take advantage. We have to have an all the above approach. We have to reclaim in a safe and transparent manner our own natural resources. It does three things. One, it reduces our dependence on foreign oil, as you mentioned,
yes,
especially with Iran right now,
yes,
price of gas going up. Two, so not only will it reduce our dependence, it'll drive down the cost of energy, and it will create American jobs. And many of those jobs will be right here in Mississippi, and we can't do it fast enough.
Well, it would add some stability to the economy. We don't have any stability in the economy as long as it's something in the Middle East. I mean, Iran could do something and the price of gas is going to go up. Somebody else could do something and the price will go up. OPEC could decide, well, we're going to stop production. We're not going to put out as much. And it affects our economy every time that happens. The stability that the XL pipeline, in my opinion, and I might be wrong, would add would be fantastic for our economy.
Just another tool in our toolbox. And this time, last year, I was actually in Jackson County when the price of gas was skyrocketing again. I was pumping gas out on
Highway 63.
Yeah, 63 at the Chevron, and they were asking, and I said the same thing then. We have to have an above all the above energy. We have to go for coal, clean coal, nuclear. We got some of the greatest natural gas deposits that the world has ever seen right here in America, and we can do it in a safe. We can do it in a transparent, mindful of our environment method. But at the end of the day, when gas is going to be above $4 in the next 30 days. How far is it going to go up? No one knows. But like you said, we need certainty. We need stability. If you're even thinking of getting a pay raise this year in this depressed economy, and I hope you do, it's going to be consumed in gas, clothing, and food, because they're going to have to pass this cost on to you. But again, you have a choice of two futures in America. We can continue down the road to despair that this president has taken us. His budget proposes $3.8 trillion in spending, another $300 billion in failed stimulus-like methods, a fourth year of trillion-dollar deficits, and record unemployment, record deficit, record debt, and the list just keeps going on and on. Or you can choose the other path, the path to prosperity. Let's simplify our tax code. Let's roll back and stop these job-killing regulations that are being churned out at record levels by these unelected bureaucrats, and they're destroying jobs here in America and keeping American jobs from being created because we don't have that certainty and the stability. It repeals Obamacare, and it actually saves Medicare. It's a great budget. And it's actually going to get this country back on the right track. And that's what the American people, they have that choice in 2012. They can continue down the road of despair, or they can take the path to prosperity. And I hope they join us and go with the path to prosperity. Our children depend on it.
I certainly hope so, because my children have children, and you have children, and that's what we want. We want an America that they can all prosper in. If we keep going down the road that you were talking about, they're not going to have that.
You're right, Doug. And the thing, you hear some people say that our best days are behind us. I don't subscribe to that. Our best days are not behind us. Our best days are ahead of us. We're just going to have to work a little harder to make that a reality.
The World War II generation has been referred to as the greatest generation, and they were. But I think we've got a great generation of young men who are overseas right now.
I know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, my son was one of them. You were one of them. And I think they're a great generation also, because they are undergoing tremendous sacrifices, just like you did when you served overseas. And I think everybody needs to remember that and really thank them. If you see a veteran on the street, thank him. So I'm thanking you for your service right now, Congressman.
Thank you. That brings up a thought. I hope I don't interrupt you, but yesterday it was my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. But 21 years ago, yesterday, I turned 21 in the Persian Gulf, right before the ground war, as a U.S. Marine. I don't know where time goes. I think I've gained 21 pounds since then too. So it's just this 21, 21, 21. But thank you. And you're right. The greatest generation lives on in your son and the men and women who are serving our country today, and they will continue to live on in our nation's defenders.
And don't forget yourself, Congressman. You're the only congressman in the United States still serving in the Mississippi Army National Guard, and I want to thank you for that on behalf of everybody.
Thank you, Doug.
Another question that came up was the defense cuts. People are just absolutely worried about Huntington Ingalls and the possibility that there's going to be layoffs, because that is, one of the state's largest employers. And we know that you're up there fighting to get contracts to keep the shipyard working. But if he's reelected, what's going to come down the pike is what people are really worried about. What will he do next? If he's going to cut this much now, what can they expect later? And one of the ladies who wrote in an email said, I'm worried that the shipyard could become a steel ghost town, which I thought was pretty prophetic. I mean, right. So you're obviously working to make sure that doesn't happen.
Daily. Be it serving on the Armed Services Committee, we have an opportunity to vote on the National Defense Authorization and Act to determine the strategy and see if the spending matches the strategy. Then of course it goes on to appropriations. But this is something we monitor every day, because South Mississippi is a military community. If you took the military, the retirees, the active, the Guard, the defense industry, the billion-dollar defense industry that employs so many Mississippians, and of course our friends across the border, Alabamians as well, it would be devastating to our economy here. So I had an opportunity to bring Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee here to Ingalls and to Keesler. I wish he had more time. First time he's ever been in South Mississippi. I don't know, it might have been the first time we've had a House Armed Services Committee chairman in Mississippi. I'm not sure. And I wanted him to see the firsthand importance of not only Ingalls and what they're doing, look at the quality and the craftsmanship, and that we've got some of the best shipbuilders in the world here, and we do build the best ships in the world. But to see that South Mississippi is extremely important to our nation's national security, but also our national security is extremely important to South Mississippi's economy. It's a very symbiotic relationship. The president, again, 2012, you have a choice. Do you want to see the military hollowed out to the point to where ships are going to be retired early? We're going to have ships that don't float, planes that can't fly. We're not going to be able to defend our interest abroad, and much less probably at home. He wants to cut $487 billion over the next decade from our defense budget. So again, defense has already made up half the cuts. We know we have to cut our spending, and defense has done their share, but $487 billion is too much, too fast. I don't agree with it. And but again, the American people have a choice. If you think this president and his administration is correct in balancing the budget on the backs of the men and women and their families, our nation's defenders, or do you feel like there's another way of doing it, then you're going to have a chance to vote on it this year.
Well, it's the men and women of the military who 24 hours a day ensure that we can live the life that we're living in the United States. And despite the problems that we have in this country, we're still the best country in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be the men and the women of the military and the ability of the military to protect that lifestyle in the future that we're going to rely on. And if these cuts take place, we are going to return to a level of pre-1940 with the number of ground forces that we have. Now, I believe one of the reasons why we were attacked by the Japanese in the start of World War II is because we were weak. And if you want to get attacked and if you want to get into a fight, just become weak, and people are going to take advantage of that. So thank you for what you're doing to ensure that not only our industry keeps working, but also the defense of the nation keeps going. We really do appreciate what you're doing.
Well, Doug, thank you. And to add one other aspect of that, the talk of the military strategy does sound good for South Mississippi, does sound good for shipbuilding, because they're looking to areas of the world where we're going to have a strong, robust Navy. Now, the actions aren't matching up to reality right now, because we are talking about retiring some ships earlier, but we're not going to be able to engage possible emerging threats in the Asia Pacific area, which is one of the areas of interest for us, without a strong robust Navy. And I do think the U.S. Congress is going to realize that, and the U.S. Congress is going to have a say in the budget going forward.
The only way we won the Cold War with Russia, in my opinion, was we outbuilt them and we remained strong, and that's the only way we did it. Another thing that people emailed me about was in relation to defense was the president's, and believe it or not, people in South Mississippi are concerned about this, the president's proposal to cut our nuclear force by 80%. That's an astounding number. We would be the lowest we've ever been. We would be lower than some other countries is for. That Congress is not going to let that happen. I hope.
I'm not going to let. I mean, I'm one vote, but yes,
I know, but
I think collectively the U.S. Congress knows that we have to have a certain deterrent here, and it's definitely not going to be the leadership coming out of the Oval Office for at least this next year, and we have, again, it's our constitutional responsibility to protect and defend, or the common defense of America, and that means at home and abroad. And the defense system, missile defense, is definitely a huge deterrent. And we also mentioned earlier, we don't want to send our young men and women to continue fighting engagements overseas. I think we've lost enough blood and treasure to last us a very long time. And if having a robust nuclear stockpile serves as a deterrent, then it's an investment worth making.
I would actually like to see the United States upgraded, if anything, which means we're serious about a deterrent against somebody who basically is a madman, in my opinion, in Iran. And he's a big threat to the whole world, not just us. He's the whole world. The world could become involved in something that's not going to be very pretty.
Yeah. Right. You mentioned missiles too. That's why America does not need to abdicate our space leadership.
Absolutely not.
Whoever controls airspace in the combat zone typically controls the battle space on the ground. Same thing applies for space. That is a different level of defense that we need to start thinking about. So when we're talking about the International Space Station and going back to the moon, these aren't follies. These are realities. Our national security depends on our ability to be able to service our satellites in space and low Earth orbit, and we're probably eventually going to have to make some new investments into going beyond low Earth orbit.
So many benefits came out of the space program that there is not enough time on this program to talk about them.
Another session, yes.
Yeah.
I'll come back. Thank you for asking.
Please do. You are welcome in our studio at any time, and we are just so proud and we're honored that you're here to tell people about what's going on. But could I ask you one more question about my emails that came in?
Oh, absolutely.
The health care bill. Our Singing River Health System, in my opinion, is probably one of the best in the nation. Right. And they are getting hit pretty hard by it. 2014 is not here, but they're already having to enact some of the things and react to some of the things that are in this, in my opinion, healthcare debacle. And that's my opinion, and I may get in trouble for saying that. But and it's going to affect. Luckily, the administration of Singing River Health System has been able to cut without cutting employees, but I don't know how long they're going to go, how long they can go without affecting employment or the quality of the health care. They're not there now, but they're really fighting, and it's really going to be hard for them. Right. And they're not the only system in the United States. Every healthcare delivery system is going to be affected by this, and it's not constitutional, like you said.
Well, where do you want to start on the health care bill?
You
mentioned Nancy Pelosi said, "Hey, we got to pass this bill to know what's inside it." Well, a 2,700-page bill, we're still finding out the bad things in this bill. Just again, talking about the right of conscience, the violation of our religious liberty, the health and human services. Oh, we thought this was never going to happen, and it did. And this little stay, that stay won't last long, folks. I mean, this bill is just bad. It's bad on so many. One, it adds $2 to $3 trillion to our national debt over the next decade. It destroys the greatest health care delivery system in the world. It does not nourish a doctor-patient relationship. No. It steals. It raids $500 billion. This is your president. Now let's back. This is extremely important, especially to our seniors here in South Mississippi. The president's bill, this health care bill, takes $500 billion out of Medicare and puts it in new experimental programs. We're trying to save Medicare in the Republican budget. The president raided $500 billion out of Medicare. So when you start seeing these political commercials in the fall, ask yourself who really is hurting Medicare and who's really going after our seniors. It's not the Republican Party, it's this administration. And then you just keep peeling it back. And yes, and you come back to not only can we not afford it, it's going to destroy the greatest healthcare system in the world, but we shouldn't even be having that debate. It's unconstitutional. It has been unconstitutional. We saw that in Mississippi. We came out in the historic election of 2010 and made our voices be heard, and so did a lot of other states. We sent 87 new conservatives up there to fight against the debacle bills that you mentioned, such as this. And because the thing, why are we wasting any energy on this health care bill when we could be coming up with true reform based on market-based solutions, tort reform, competition, get the doctor-patient relationship going again, people becoming more responsible for their own health and seeing their insurance premiums and the cost of insurance, healthcare drop. But at the end of the day, it's unconstitutional, plain and simple. And our courts are hopefully, are going to rule on that in the near future.
Congressman, we got 1 minute left. And again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And your staff has been fabulous to work with. I want to thank them on the air. And I want to invite you back to WKFK at any time you want to come back, because I think it's very important for us to have these conversations so that people can understand and hear about what's going on. I've tried to read the health care bill, and I didn't know about the $500 billion figure. So, folks, this is very important information, and we want to thank you for what you're doing. And we need to keep you there so you can continue to do that important work that you're doing for us now.
Well, Doug, you can help keep me here, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's been an honor to serve South Mississippi as their U.S. Congressman, and I plan on continue fighting for them and their families. This is, like I said, I don't think our best days are behind us. They're ahead of us, and we just have to fight for it. We have to work a lot harder. And something great that's coming up, and I'd like to possibly come back on your show and talk to you about, it's the USS Mississippi being commissioned right here, June 2nd. In Pascagoula. It's going to be a great homecoming, and this is not just a one county issue. We need to get the entire state of Mississippi involved in this, because this is a wonderful one-time deal. Our military, our veterans, our shipbuilders, all our patriots across the state need to come down, and we're just going to have one big family gathering.
Again, Congressman, thank you so much for your service to the country. Thank you so much for your service in the 4th District and what you're doing. And we want to thank you for being here, and we want to hope that you're back again to keep on doing what you're doing.
Well, Doug, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And maybe next time you'll let me call him Stephen Palazzo instead of Congressman. But I'm just kidding about that. And thank you for watching this very special edition of Spotlight on Jackson County. Join us again next time for another important show. We'll see you then.